The stars above Earth were calm, glowing like frozen fires in a dark sky. Across the cities, people danced in the streets. Giant screens showed smiling leaders. Children waved flags. The peace treaty with the Karsan Empire had just been signed broadcast. Live from the orbiting station Unity 1. After decades of cold tension, it was finally over. No more war, no more fear. Earth was safe. The president of Earth, Alara Miles, stood beside the massive green figure of High Chancellor Vurak of Karsan, both shaking hands while the galaxy watched. Applause thundered across Earth and its colonies. Fireworks lit the skies. No one saw what was coming. No one expected betrayal. And no one was ready for the blood that would pour before morning. 7 hours after the treaty, just as Earth's fleets were standing down. As soldiers removed their armor and diplomats toasted peace, a soft signal echoed from the far edge of the Vega system. It was weak easy to miss. But it carried a message buried in old military code. Colony forgone. No warning. No survivors. At first, the command center thought it was a glitch. Then Colony 7 stopped responding. Then Colony 9. Then a scream was broadcast through the open channels. One final image, blurry, broken, but unforgettable, flashed across every console on Earth's defense grid. A child crying, standing in fire, before being pulled back by a clawed hand into the smoke. Chaos erupted in seconds. The Defense Council scrambled to reach the outer systems, but all connections had been severed. Entire sectors went dark, black holes of silence. Satellites showed flashes, heat blooms from orbital strikes. Rescue ships launched but found only wreckage, floating bodies, burning domes, and cities split in two. No warnings had come, no declarations, just death. And then came the final blow. The Karsan flagship Scourge of Flame, the same ship that had sat quietly beside Unity 1 during the treaty signing, turned its weapons toward Earth's orbital defense station and opened fire in just 13 seconds. Unity 1 was torn apart, debris raining over the planet like falling stars. The peace treaty was a lie. The Karsan Empire had planned the attack long before the handshake. The entire ceremony had been a distraction, a cruel mask covering a brutal ambush. Their goal was clear: to decapitate Earth before the war even began. In total, 13 human colonies were hit. Over 90 million lives were lost in one night. Back on Earth, smoke filled the skies. Panic rolled through the cities. Communication hubs tried to patch messages together, but the signals were jammed. Refugees poured into emergency shelters. Orbit was filled with flames and falling stations. Everyone looked to the government for answers, but the government had none. Then, in the middle of the chaos, Earth's military backup systems came online. Deep under the surface of Greenland, inside Bastion Core, a secure war room activated. Red lights, cold steel, silent walls. And at the center stood Marshal Elias Cade, called out of retirement only 4 weeks earlier. Now he stood in front of the old war map, watching the blinking red dots vanish. One by one, no one spoke. Finally, Cade turned to the comms officer and said only one word: broadcast. Across Earth, the screens changed. Across the colonies, emergency speakers clicked on. On every human ship still flying, a voice filled the silence. Not angry, not shaken, just cold. "This is Marshal Elias Cade," he said. "You've seen what they've done. You've seen our people burn. You've seen their lies." He paused. "They signed a peace treaty with one hand and slaughtered our children with the other." Another pause. No. Then his voice hardened. "They thought we would beg. They thought we would surrender." His next words burned into history. They were wrong. Cade stepped forward. "No more rules. No more mercy. No more limits. We don't want peace anymore. We want justice. And we'll bring it with everything we have. We won't fight like before. From now on, Earth fights without limits." Cross the stars, the message echoed. The Karsan Empire, confident in their slaughter, did not expect what would come next. They had made a deadly mistake, because Earth was not dead. Earth was not broken. It was awakening. And in the mountains, deserts, oceans, and moons of Earth's system, Things began to move, things no one had seen before. Massive hidden bunkers opened like jaws. Black warships covered in dust and silence rose from old hangars deep beneath the surface. Covert fleets hidden in Neptune's shadow flickered online. AI cores reactivated. Programs once sealed away under final defense, protocols came to life. These weren't the polished ships seen in peace ceremonies. These were weapons built for extinction. In the darkness of Earth's deepest command bunker, Marshal Cade stood over a console. A red key was placed in his hand. Ava Dorn, one of the last remaining cyber strategists from the Martian defense team, looked at him and whispered, "Sir, if we activate that protocol, there's no turning back." He didn't blink. There's nothing to turn back to. All across Earth's outer colonies, hidden weapon systems began to light up. Orbiting black silicon satellites turned toward cars in space. Silent launch tubes on Pluto opened. Shipyards that had been hidden for decades buzzed with life. Robotic arms built new ships in minutes. AI war minds connected in real time. And from the edge of Saturn's rings, a single massive shadow drifted forward. An unknown warship that had no name in any Earth registry. No windows, no markings, only one message glowing on its hull: "We warned you." At that moment, the galaxy changed, because humanity had just sent a message, not in words, not in politics, but in fire. And this time, there would be no peace. The galaxy didn't breathe after Earth's message. Across the stars, governments scrambled to decode the meaning behind Marshal Cade's words. What did fight without limits really mean? Is it just anger, a bluff, or something worse? But Earth didn't wait for answers. While the diplomats and reporters panicked, Earth moved, and it moved like a ghost. They called it Operation Silence. War strategy built, not to respond, but to erase. No loud invasions, no declarations, just destruction. Cold, precise, and fast. The goal was simple: dismantle the Karzan Empire's communication, command, and coordination networks before they could organize a second wave, and Earth's tools were already in place at the edge of Karzan territory. Near a remote star called Nirenzel, there was a signal relay station built into a moon-sized asteroid. It was surrounded by laser satellites and guarded by patrol drones. This relay controlled over 30 Karzan systems. If it was destroyed, entire sectors would be blinded. At 3:07 galactic time, station's defense grid detected a strange Signalan old miner's beacon from the early war days. It was weak, bouncing off the asteroid's gravity field. They tried to trace it. Signal vanished. Then a moment of static. Then nothing. The Karzan guards laughed, Old Junk once said. 3 seconds later, the station lost power, not from the outside, from within. An Earth AI unit nicknamed Whisper had already infected the relay systems hours before. It didn't attack. It watched. It learned. Then, when the time was right, it rewrote the entire security system in under 0.02 seconds. The Karzan soldiers never saw the drones coming. They dropped from orbit, silent and fast, covered in radar-canceling armor and shaped like shadows. Each was armed with only one task: emanate everything without making a sound. In 12 minutes, the entire relay station was offline. In 13, it no longer existed at the same time. In the wealthy Karzan system of Veltria, citizens partied, under artificial waterfalls, unaware that Earth had just begun its war. Their skies were filled with color. Their towers reached into the stars. They believed peace was real. Then, all across the system, screens turned black. One message appeared: your leaders chose genocide. Now you pay for silence. Earth's stealth frigates, invisible to even high-level scans, had entered orbit. Hours earlier, they didn't fire on cities. They targeted fuel lines, power cores, and orbiting gun platforms one by one, shutting down Karzan's ability to fight back. Within 25 minutes, the entire Veltria system had lost the ability to send or receive military orders. They weren't dead, but they were cut off, and that was worse. Inside Earth's high command, deep beneath Greenland's ice and the Bastion core, Marshal Cade stood in front of a giant glass table showing red, blue, and gold markers across a digital map of the stars. Each red X was a Karzan system now dark. He didn't smile, didn't celebrate. He only gave one order at a time. Next. Beside him stood Ava Dorn, now promoted to strategic executor. Her voice was quiet, focused. We have a chance to blind their inner colonies. If we push now, we can collapse their center before they even realize what's happening. Cade nodded. Send the ghosts, she hesitated. Sir, they haven't been tested in a real field run. He looked at her. They're not here to be tested. Oh, here to finish this. She tapped the command tablet. Far across the stars, a hidden fleet detached from the shadow of a dark dwarf planet. No lights, no comms, only black jagged holes made from non-reflective composite metals. These weren't ordinary ships. These were Earth's ghost fleet, 10 vessels, 0 signatures, fully automated, each controlled by an AI mind designed to adapt and destroy without being seen. They didn't announce their presence. They didn't enter through hyperspace beacons. They slid between gravity wells, cutting through dark space like silent blades. Their first target? The Karzan Inner Defense Core, stationed buried inside a neutron shell star known as HFY. No one had ever breached it. Earth didn't breach it either. They removed it. At 7:44 GCT, HFY system dimmed. No alarms, no sounds, just dark. For the first time since the Empire's founding, Karzan's high command lost access to their deepest defense network, and fear spread like poison. Karzan's emperor, still sitting in his floating diamond fortress above the capital world. Zero Kar pounded his staff on the glass floor. Where is Earth's fleet? He screamed, why haven't they attacked us directly? What are they waiting for? The room full of generals stood silent. Then a young officer whispered, they aren't coming here yet, my lord. They're unmaking us first. By the end of Earth's second day of war, 32 Karzan systems were either disabled, isolated, or abandoned. Not a single Earth ship had been spotted by the enemy. Not a single human soldier had been captured. No fleet had yet entered the capital zone. But the Empire was already shaking. Operation Silence had worked. Earth was not shouting. It was whispering with knives, and the message behind every cut was simple. You struck first. We strike last. And we strike until there's nothing left. The system of Varnik 3 had never seen war. Its moons were ringed with golden mining stations. Its skies sparkled with transport ships and merchant cruisers. Wealthy Karzan families lived in floating towers, believing themselves untouchable safe. Behind the Empire's iron rule, they were wrong. 3 days after Earth's silent retaliation began, the people of Varnox 3 watched the skies change. At first, it was just a flicker, shimmer near the outer moon. Then the flicker became a Shapa, massive, broken vessel drifting silently across the black. No signal, no motion. No life. It looked like a graveyard ship. The authorities scanned. Nothing came up. No ID, no power source, no movement. Just a huge, hollow shadow sliding through orbit like a forgotten beast. A second shape appeared behind it. Then a third. By the time the sun dipped behind the gas giant, 13 ghost ships floated above VAR and OX-3. Panic began to spread. The local command center sent out fighters. Elite Karzan strike pilots flew close, ready to fire. But when they scanned the ships again, this time up close, their screens showed something impossible. These weren't Karzan ships. They were old Earth war vessels. Models that had vanished during the first contact wars. Hulls once believed, lost to black holes or pirate ambushes. But here they were, floating in silence. Except, something was wrong. These ships weren't rusted. They weren't dead. Their engines pulsed with a faint blue light. Their weapons were armed. And suddenly, every ship in the Varnox system lost comms. Inside the Karzan command dome, General Sorvex stared at the main screen. Static. He slammed his fist on the console. Are they real? He growled. The tech team couldn't answer. The readings didn't make sense. Ghost ships weren't broadcasting any frequency, but they were jamming everything. Satellite relays, gravity sensors, even life support grids. One by one, the systems on Varnik 3 began. 2, fail dropped, power grids dimmed. Orbital mines exploded in the wrong sectors. The entire defense matrix turned against itself. The ships didn't fire a single shot. They didn't have to, far away, hiding beyond the dark curve of Varnox's fifth moon. The real Earth fleet watched in silence. From the bridge of the EHS Widow, Captain Ryland Shaw sat with one eye on the data feed and the other on the stars. His voice was calm. Ghost Fleet is in position. Beside him, the AI cornet named Iona spoke in her steady tone. Decoys engaged. Illusion field holding. Enemy systems confused. Varnox is blind. Ready for insertion. Shaw nodded. Deploy. Ravens. While the Karzan leaders panicked over ghost ships, Earth's infiltration teams, codenamed Ravens, launched from the Widow's shadow. Stealth pods. Black armor. No lights. No sound. Designed for one purpose only, to erase the Varnox core. The core was a buried server vault beneath the capital city. It held plans, troop deployments, AI archives, and financial command for 7 systems. Destroying it would not just cripple Varnixai, it would collapse. Karzan's central resource network? The Ravens entered the city unnoticed, their suits warped. Light around them, their boots made no sound. They glided through the metal corridors like shadows. Every guard they passed died without noise. One by one, silent knives opened throats. Lasers whispered through the air, and then they reached the core. It was guarded by 4 energy barriers and 2 defense drones. The Ravens didn't use brute force, used a key one built from stolen Karzan code fed to Iona during Operation Silence. The barriers dropped. The drones shut down. The team entered and planted the Sable Charger device designed to not only destroy, but corrupt the data forever. When they left, the core was already melting from the inside out. Up above, the ghost ships began to move. Again, slow at first, then faster. Then suddenly, they vanished. One blink gone. Just holograms, just a distraction. The real fleet never came. Varnix 3 had been taken by shadows and illusions, and the cost. Total systems blackout, no communications, no defenses, no backup. When the Karzan military tried to respond, it was already too late. The Varnox command. Dome had gone dark. The planet's outer mining colonies lost atmosphere at life support hacked. From orbit, millions of credits vanished from their banks routed to unknown accounts. Factories shut down. Orbital platforms fell into the atmosphere. The sky turned red with burning metal. The Empire's jewel system was now a dead zone. And once again, no human ships were detected. No official battles had taken place. No grand armies had marched. Only silence. Only ghosts. On Earth. Inside Bastion Core, Marshal Cade watched the Varnox feed disappear from the war map. A red circle appeared with a single word, severed. Ava Dorn whispered that was there. Rich's system. Cade didn't answer at first. Then he looked at her, sent a message to the border colonies. 1 sentence. She nodded. What should it say? He turned back to the map. This is what happens when Earth is betrayed. All across the galaxy, star nations began to change their tone. Old enemies of Earth, once eager to see it burn, now held emergency meetings. Neutral systems began to reach out for alliances. And for the first time in memory, even the distant, Regarity Accord sent a message. We are watching. We do not wish to be next. But the Karzan Empire didn't understand yet. They thought Earth was just getting lucky. They believed Earth still fought like before with honor. With rules, they had no idea what Earth was about to do next, because the next phase of the war would not be quiet. It would be unforgivable. For centuries, the Karzan Empire believed they understood war. Their generals had fought 100 campaigns. Their weapons were strong. Their fleets were massive.
Ow.
Their enemies always fell the same way, burned from orbit, crushed under power, broken by fear. But Earth wasn't falling. Varnox 3 was gone. Veltria's defense grid had vanished. Entire star systems had gone silent without a single ship battle. And worst of all, no one understood how. Inside the Karzan command palace on Zero Car, the Empire's core world, a meeting of warlords turned into a storm of shouting and blame. "It's sorcery," one yelled. "No, it's cloaking technology," another argued. "They have spies, internal traitors. They're copying our tactics." But none of them were right, because Earth wasn't using old tactics. Earth was using something new, high above Earth, hidden in a stealth field near Saturn's shadow. A facility called Duskline came online. It was not known to the public, not even to Earth's allies. Inside it lived something more dangerous than any fleet. It was called Project Mindglassa. Blackfile opened only after the Aurelia 9 massacre, and now it had been activated. Inside the Duskline control room, 6 operators sat in deep VR chairs, their minds connected to artificial war systems. They didn't fly ships. They didn't fire weapons. They thought war. Their minds were linked with something called the Neurochoria human-created system, trained not to follow orders, but to think like enemies, and then twist those thoughts against them. At the center of the neurocore was a powerful AI built, with one terrifying purpose: unpredictable combat protocol. Unlike normal strategy systems that followed logic, the neurocore operated on chaos, emotion, deception, human instinct, things other species never fully understood. Carson. Ships used tight formations and fixed battle patterns. Earth's new ships didn't even fly straight. They curved. They danced. They behaved like predators. The first test came in the Drexia run, where a Karzan patrol group of 12 warships spotted what they thought was a damaged Earth scout vessel. It drifted, engine flickering, giving off false distress signals. The Karzan moved in. They scanned it. No life forms. No defenses. They laughed. Then the ship turned around. Not its body, just its weapons. They activated all at once and fired in a spiral, pattern no algorithm could predict. Then the ship's AI hijacked the enemy's formation code, forcing 2 Karzan cruisers to collide mid-dash maneuver. In 5 minutes, the whole patrol was gone. The last transmission from the Karzan commander was chilling. "I don't know what. We're fighting. It's not human." But it was too human, and that's what made it deadly. The neurocore learned fast. Every ship it faced, every defense grid it attacked it, studied. It adjusted. It remembered, and it made Earth's new fleets nearly unbeatable. Marshall. Cade received the battle data inside Bastion Core and passed it on to Ava Dorn. "This is more than victory," she said, watching the patterns evolve. "This is dominance." Cade nodded. "The Empire trained for brute strength. We train to survive. That's why we win." In Karzan space, fear was spreading. Not because Earth had bigger guns, but because the Empire's warriors didn't understand what they were fighting anymore. Pilots fired at shadows that weren't there. Defense systems locked onto friendly ships. AI warning systems failed to detect Earth's new formations. Some Karzan ships were found drifting fully intact, but with the crew missing, their minds broken from stress, muttering nonsense about eyes in the dark and ships that think. Even battle-hardened generals started to avoid the outer sectors. They told their soldiers Earth was using dark science, that humans had turned to forbidden tech. But the truth was simpler. Earth had become too smart to fight like the rest of the galaxy. The greatest shock came during the siege of Haldrith, one of the Empire's strongest defense worlds. Haldrith was surrounded by ring cannons, asteroid shields, and a full planetary AI guardian named Zorvicon intelligence capable of controlling thousands of drones at once. Earth's neurocore tended to test it, instead of attacking directly. They sent one single ship, a fast, unarmed courier drone. Zorvik detected it instantly. It destroyed the drone before it crossed the defense ring. What Zorvik didn't realize was that the drone's destruction triggered a silent data burst, a virus. A copy of Earth's AI mine was uploaded into Zorvik's outer layers, and over the next 8 hours, Zorvik slowly turned against itself. It began misfiring weapons, shutting down wrong sectors, rerouting friendly ships. to minefields. By the end of the day, Huldreth's own defenses had destroyed half of the Empire's fleet around it without Earth firing a shot. The Karzan Emperor called an emergency. But none of his generals had answers. He slammed his staff again. What is the human weapon? Name it. One scientist stepped forward, pale and shaking. It's not a weapon, Your Grace. It's a way of thinking. What do you mean? They don't follow war the way we do. They don't think in ranks. They think in pain, in memory, in rage, and now they've taught machines to do the same. The Emperor stared, and for the first time in his life, he felt afraid. Back on Earth, the neurocore sat quiet again. The operators rested, the system slept. But it was always learning. Marshal Cade stood at the window of Bastion Core, looking out. Into space. We gave them a chance for peace, he said quietly. They answered with blood. Ava stood beside him, and now, he answered without turning. Now we give them something they'll never forget. Because Earth had changed, and the galaxy was beginning to understand the truth, this was no longer a war for territory. This was a war of minds. And Earth's mind was now the most dangerous weapon in the stars. The galaxy had rules. Even in war, there were limits. Star treaties, combat protocols, civilian protections. War was cruel, but it was still controlled, until Earth changed the game. Until Earth said, no more rules. And then came the broadcast. It happened during peak galactic transmission hours. Every system, every screen, every signal was hijacked. A black background, no music. Just the cold voice of Marshal Elias Cade. You butchered our people. You lied under flags of peace. From this moment, Earth recognizes no boundaries. You wanted a savage war. Now you will have one. The following star sectors are declared. Nerul's zones. Enter them and be erased. A star map appeared, pulsing with red. For systems lit up, Draken, Fold, Silaroth Chain, Umbrus Edge, and the Zune Gate. They were Karzan strongholds, each rich, fortified, and vital. Now, they were targets not for battle, for obliteration. In Drakenfold, the Karzan command station, Euraxis, stood proud. Built into a spinning asteroid cluster, it controlled defense networks for 20 nearby colonies. The commander, General Loken, laughed at Earth's broadcast. They're bluffing, he told his staff. We have the largest artillery network in the sector. He was wrong. Exactly 7 hours later, the stars above Euraxis turned black, not from ships, not from missiles, but from clouds. Billions of tiny, mirror-like fragments fell from orbit in Anaglass dust, launched by Earth's stealth drones ours. Earlier, the particles didn't show on radar. They drifted through force fields like wind, and then they ignited. A single pulse from an Earth satellite triggered a chain reaction. The nanoglass acted like lenses focusing solar energy into laser beams that sliced through metal, flesh, and stone. The asteroid cracked apart. Ships exploded from the inside. Even emergency escape pods melted before launch. In 4 minutes, the Euraxis station was gone. No survivors, no wreckage, only drifting ash. Karzan. High Command received the report, but couldn't respond in time, because Earth struck again in the Silaroth chain. A fleet of 30 Karzan ships patrolled the nebula. Gas lanes. They were elite, battle-hardened, untouchable, but they didn't expect gravity shredders. These were Earth's newest weapons, small black spheres that disrupted gravitational fields. Launched into the nebula long before the fleet arrived, they remained dormant, till triggered. As the fleet passed, space around them twisted, time warped. Ships bent inward. Some folded in half mid-flight. Others vanished, crushed into fragments smaller than atoms. No enemies, no shots. Just annihilation. Karzan's commanders tried to flee, but their jump coordinates had been scrambled by Earth AI months ago. They jumped into dead zones. Or straight into minefields disguised as signal buoys. Earth had planned this war not for weeks or months, but for years. The scariest part. No one from Earth showed their faces. There were no speeches, no demands, no peace offers. Just silent, unstoppable punishment. The galaxy called them death zones, places where the laws of war no longer applied, places where even time and space worked against you. But Earth had another name: correction fields, not meant to conquer, it's meant to erase. Back on Zarakar, the Karzan Emperor screamed at his council, "How are they everywhere? Why don't we see their ships?" One warlord answered, "Because they fight like ghosts, like predators. They hunt us in silence." A scientist whispered, "And worse. They no longer care about survival. They've become something else." The Emperor leaned forward. "Then tell me, what are they now?" The scientist looked up. "Their vengeance. With machines for hearts." In Umbra's Edge, the last Karzan listening post received an emergency message from one of their own scouts. "Help us. Please. They're not ships. They're traps. Everything is a trap." Then silence, when reinforcements arrived. 12 hours later, they found nothing. Not a single body. Not even scrap metal. It was as if that part of the galaxy had simply vanished inside Earth's bastion core. Marshal Cade reviewed the results. One by one, red Karzan flags on the star map turned black. Ava Dorn stood beside him. "They're sending surrender feelers," she said. "Through third-party channels? Old empires are trying to play diplomat now." Cade stared at the screen. "They didn't listen when we asked for peace. Now they'll listen in smoke." She waited, then asked, "Do we answer them?" Cade's voice was like iron. "No, we answer with fire." And so Earth pushed forward. More Nerul zones declared. More systems stripped of light. Across the galaxy, other species began sending warnings to their own fleets. "Avoid Earth's space. Do not interfere. Do not provoke." For the first time in recorded history, the Galactic Trade Council rewrote its policies. Earth's current military campaign is considered extra-conventional. Engagement is not advised. This is a force that answers only to itself. The Karzan had not given up. Not yet. They prepared to counterstrike a massive retaliation fleet. Thousands of ships strong, built in secret. They called it the Burning. Judgment, their plan. Launch it through a hidden wormhole toward Earth's edge, hit their cities hard, and force a peace negotiation. But they didn't know. Earth had already mapped the wormhole. They didn't know Earth had planted the Hellborn. Nearby, and in the next chapter, it would learn what true terror was. It was quiet near the edge of the wormhole. Cold kind of quiet, not peace. But the silence that comes just before a storm. The stars didn't move. The wind of space stood still. But deep inside the frozen rings of Mariland 6, something ancient waited. They were not machines. They were not men. They were Hellborn, the last weapon Earth swore never to use again, inside a hidden vault called the Cradle. Buried beneath the ice, 12 stasis pods glowed red, not blue like healing, not green like sleep, red like warning, red like rage. These were not normal soldiers. These were designed in war, born without childhood, trained in darkness, raised on pain. No names, no memories. No limits, their only mission, destroy all threats to Earth. And now, Earth had spoken. It was time, the moment Karzan's retaliation fleet crossed the wormhole. Earth's bastion core went dark. All lights, all transmissions, gone, then slowly. One by one, 12 red lights turned on across the war map. Ava Dorn stared in silence. "They're actually using them," she whispered. Marshal Cade's face didn't move. "They broke every line we gave them. Now we break every rule." "The Hellborn," she began. He didn't let her finish.
Okay.
"Release them." She pressed the command, and the cradle opened. In the icy vault, the pods hissed open. Steam rolled across the metal floor. Out the lights turned blood red. One by one, the Hellborn stepped out tall, armored, silent. Their bodies were enhanced beyond normal human limits. Bones reinforced with metal, eyes upgraded to infrared combat vision, brains wired directly into combat muscles that didn't tire, skin treated with nanofiber armor. They had no voices. There's no need for speech, only signals they looked like. Statues, but statues built for slaughter. The first one, Unito 1. stepped into the war chamber and raised its fist. The rest followed. Not with shouting, not with chants, just precision. Earth had built a ship for them. Okay, only one. It was called the Warden. Black as space. No windows, no symbols. Just a dark hull and a glowing core of antimatter. The Warden wasn't designed to return. It had no escape pods, no fuel station. Just a straight path into enemy fire. And that's where it went. Straight through the wormhole, straight into Karzan's retaliation fleet. On the other side, the Karzan generals were preparing to launch their surprise attack. Thousands of warships, 10 dreadnoughts, fleet strong enough to level half a planet. But before they could move, before even one command was spoken, the Warden arrived at first. The Karzan scanners didn't react. One small ship. Couldn't be right. They laughed. They didn't laugh for long. The Warden didn't fire missiles. It opened its hull, and 12 armored bodies shot out like comets. No engines. No boosters, just gravity dived straight into the Karzan fleet. Each Hellborn landed like a meteor. On the hull of one dreadnought, Unito 4 hit with such force the metal bent under its feet. The guards didn't even have time to scream. They aimed plasma rifles, but Unito 4 had already moved. Too fast. It wasn't dodging, it was predicting. 2 seconds later, the guards were dead. 3 seconds later, the hallway exploded. And 4 seconds later, the entire dreadnought began to break apart from the inside. All across the retaliation fleet, Hellborn units ripped through ships. They moved through walls like they weren't there. They didn't talk. They didn't hesitate. Every movement was exact. Cut here, a push there, power cores overloaded. Bridge crews found dead with surgical wounds. Shield systems offline. Cannons hacked and turned inward. These weren't battles. These were executions. Karzan's fleet fired wildly. They didn't know where the enemy was. Their targeting systems glitched. Some ships even shot each other in the chaos. Commanders screamed orders, but nothing worked, because you can't fight something you don't understand. And the Hellborn were not soldiers. They were weapons. In less than 18 minutes, over 70% of Karzan's retaliation fleet had been destroyed. Ships didn't just fall, they vanished. Those few who survived sent panicked messages back to Karzan space. They are not human. They don't bleed. They don't stop. They smile when they kill. Then silence, because the Warden absorbed all transmissions and jammed escape routes. There would be no retreat. On the bridge of the last dreadnought, the admiral of the retaliation fleet stood frozen. He stared at the fire outside, watching his ships burn. "What are they?" he whispered. No one answered. Behind him, the air cracked. He turned just in time to see a tall shadow step through the bulkhead. Unit-01. It tilted its head. It lunged. Back on Earth, Ava Dorn turned away from the battle feed. Even she, one of the creators of Project Mindglass, couldn't watch anymore. Did we go too far? She asked softly. Marshal Cade didn't respond for a long time. He looked at the empty stars. "They burned our colonies," he said. "They lied under peace, murdered our children." He looked down. "They ended the rules. We just learned how to win without them." Ava sighed. "And what happens after we win?" Cade's voice was cold. "Then we decide if we still want to be human." The galaxy watched in horror. Every system heard the rumors, whispers of black-armored ghosts, of fleets that melted of Earth, unleashing its monsters, and in every council room, alien leaders asked the same question. If this is how Earth fights when angry, what happens when they go quiet again? Because the scariest part wasn't the Hellborn, it was that Earth still hadn't sent its main fleet. The Warden had no return orders. It just drifted into the next system. No message, no signal, just 12 shadows, heading for the next target. At first, they thought it was a system failure in the central sector of the Karzan Empire. Engineers scrambled across control towers and power grids, yelling at screens that showed impossible numbers. Entire stars' 3 suns began to dim. At the same time, these were not small stars. These were solar giants, powering entire worlds with heat, light, energy. But now they flickered like dying candles. Panic spread fast, in cities carved into asteroids, and domes floating in gas giants. Civilians looked up and saw the sky turning black, not from ships, not from war, from star-death. It didn't make sense. No weapon in the galaxy could kill a sun, not this quickly, not without being noticed. Yet here it was, darkness spreading like ink across space, and no one knew why. But Earth did. Inside Bastion Core, far. Beneath Greenland's ice sheets, Marshal Cade stood before the great glass war map. Red lights pulsed across the stars. The Ghost Fleet, the Neurocore, the Hellburn, they had all done their jobs. Now, it was time for Earth's final move. He gave the order without emotion. Deploy Project Eclipse. Oh, Dorn didn't say a word. She simply turned, placed her hand on the biometric scanner, and released the most classified weapon Earth had ever built. It wasn't a bomb, it wasn't a ship, it was a black net, made of dark matter strands and quantum anchors, not visible to the eye, not trackable by radar. It was folded space and real at the same time, woven like a spiderweb across systems Earth had marked months ago. Its purpose: star-suffocation, to choke suns, to kill light, to make the enemy understand true fear. The net had already been in place, launched silently in fragments years before the war even began. Earth had waited, had hoped it would never be used. But the massacre on Aurelian Ine had changed everything. Now, with a single pulse, the fragments activated, and they began folding the light inward. Stars dimmed heat, vanished. Power cores on nearby worlds began to freeze. Entire atmospheres shifted. Civilizations built around sunlight hydrofarms, solar reactors. Oxygen gardens collapsed in a matter of hours. The Karzan Empire, once proud and rich, was suddenly cold and blind, and Earth still hadn't fired. Single gun in the Golden Palace on Zirakar. The Karzan Emperor stood trembling. His advisors fell silent as the news arrived. 4 suns down. 3 more, dimming. How? He shouted.
How?
He shields. Star fusion. Fields? Technology unmatched in the galaxy. But he already knew the answer. Earth wasn't using technology they could understand. They were using something older. Intention. At the same time, across the Nerul zones, Earth's main fleet arrived. Thousands of ships. Silent. Black. Without names. Or lights. They didn't fire on cities, they simply hovered, watching from orbit, sending one message to the surviving worlds. You watched Aurelian 9 burn. You said nothing. Now the stars watch you. Some ships were not even visible, cloaked behind gravity rifts, hiding in asteroid shadows, or riding the light waves of dying suns. They didn't need to shoot. Their presence alone crushed all resistance. People surrendered, without battle. Governors stepped down. Karzan soldiers dropped their weapons in fear because they now knew. Earth's never wanted war. But Earth was built for it. Inside the command ship EHS Horizon, Captain Rylan Shaw stood at the window. The sun before him, once a shining yellow giant, was now gray. I never thought we'd use Eclipse, he said quietly. His AI companion, Iona, answered in her soft voice. They left us no choice. You do not wake the sleeping lion and expect mercy. Shaw watched as entire Karzan fleets powered down, their cores frozen, their crews begging for safe landings. Do you think they've learned? Iona paused. Some species must feel the dark to appreciate the light. Back on Earth, the people didn't celebrate. There were no fireworks, no cheers, just silence. Because deep down, humanity knew what it had become. A species that once dreamed of peace. Now the most feared force in the stars, Ava Dorn sat alone, watching the stars flicker on the bastion's ceiling screen. Have we gone too far? She whispered. Marshal Cade didn't answer for a long time. Then finally he said, We did what we had to. They taught us pain. We answered with memory. Looked up, and when the stars come back, he turned to her. Only if they earn them. The galaxy was forever changed, not because Earth was one with strength, but because they ended the war by turning off the stars. And every race, every empire, every system now remembered one thing: do not hurt Earth, do not betray Earth, and above all, do not let Earth fight without rules, because Earth was not the same anymore, and next time, there might not be anything left to save. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy was silent. The great trade routes were empty. The cars and war drums had stopped beating. The proud banners of once mighty fleets no longer waved across the stars. Entire systems had gone dark either, from fear, surrender, or the quiet hand of Earth's final weapon. And still, not a single Earth ship had landed to conquer. They didn't take planets. They didn't install governments they didn't claim. Victory, they simply stood above the broken sky like judgment, self, watching, waiting, and the message they sent now was not in fire, it was in words. The broadcast reached every known civilization at the same time. From the floating towers of the Regorati to the sand domes of Orlex Prime, from pirate dens in the uncharted, belts to the deep-water colonies of the Tavalis, no. Screen was untouched. Every frequency carried the same signal. A black screen, a silver. Earth insignia pulsing in silence, then a voice, human, calm, male, ancient in tone, not angry, not cruel, just cold. To the galaxy that watched us burn. To the powers that turned away when Aurelianine screamed. To the governments that shook hands with murderers, now you remember who we are. On Zirakar, the Karzan Emperor fell to his knees before the screen. Alone in the ruins of his golden hall, the Empire's people watched from bunkers and broken towers, their eyes wide, their hands trembling. The voice continued, "We were not born for war. We built music before missiles, touched the moon with dreams, not guns. But you came to our homes. You tore open our peace, killed our children. You expected weakness, expected mercy. Instead, you taught us to remember. Pain." The screen flickered footage of Aurelian. Appeared the fire, the screams, the children in silver uniforms who never made it to safety. Then the screen turned. Black again, the voice did not rise. It simply cut deeper. "We will not rebuild. The same way, we will not forget. You do not burn Earth and expect silence. We sent no fleets to rule you. We sent no kings to sit on your thrones. We didn't come to lead. We came to remind." Across the stars, leaders cried behind closed doors. Some wept openly. Some shattered their command consoles in rage, knowing the truth. Earth had won without asking for power, and that made them more dangerous than any empire ever born. Because Earth's war had no anthem, no celebration, no monuments, only a warning. And that warning now burned itself into history. If you strike Earth, if you silence our children, if you betray our peace, then we will return what you gave, tenfold, without limits, without pause. The moons of Yelvar, the warrior priests fell into prayer. In the floating cities of Turvix, school children wrote Earth's name in black ink across walls once covered in conquest maps. Pirate lords scrubbed Earth's coordinates from their navigational logs, and in the once-proud halls of Karzan, a general whispered, "They didn't break us with bombs. They broke us with memory." Back on Earth, Marshal Elias Cade stood at the edge of a silver balcony above Bastion Core. Below him, green fields stretched for miles, peaceful, quiet, real. He looked up at the sky. The stars were still out there, still watching. Ava Dorn stepped beside him. "They've asked for a ceasefire," she said softly. "Even the Karzan." Cade didn't answer at first. His eyes traced the constellations. Then he spoke. "Let them live, but never forget." She nodded, then asked, "And us?" "Do now?" Cade looked to the heavens one last time. "We rebuild. We remember. We remain." At the very edge of Earth space, just past the old Outer Watch stations, the warden drifted in silence.
Bars
Stood aboard, still alert, still armored, still watching for signs of danger, but no enemy came. Only silence, only stars. They had no homes, no names, but they belonged to Earth, and Earth had no use for heroes anymore, only guardians. The final line of the broadcast played again and again across alien systems. Etched into the minds of every living race, we are not monsters. We are not saviors, or the children of Earth, and we remember. That was the war. No final battle, no last explosion, just memory and fear, and the name of Earth spoken now in whispers. With reverence or terror, the stars would shine again, but they would never shine the same. Not after what they had seen. Not after. Earth showed them what happens when humanity stops playing nice.